This episode is brought to you by Lumina Growth Lab. At Lumina, we help professional learning and development companies who are struggling with predictable lead flow, a sniper approach to attracting the ideal clients, and a system that qualifies clients so they can have a smoother sales process, finally have scalability, and ultimately take their business to the next level. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because nothing seems to work outside of word of mouth and referral based lead generation. But with the right strategy and support, they're able to confidently add new channels of lead generation and a packed pipeline that creates sustainable revenue and year over year growth for cheaper than ever before because of the use of AI technologies. If that sounds like you or someone you know, connect with me on LinkedIn and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about unlocking your business's potential. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Marketing Matrix. I'm your host, Lisanne Murphy. And today I am joined by the incredible, talented, and wisdom-filled Michael Norton. Michael, thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
And it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm humbled by your remarks.
Well, you might be humbled, but it's because of how awesome you are, honestly, guys. I'm so excited for you to get to know him. In the conversations that I've had with Michael, I have been just really impressed with his wealth of experience, but his down-to-earth nature and his desire to connect in a real human way with anyone that's in front of him. And so let me take a moment to introduce this powerhouse guy, and then I'm going to let him just take it away and share a bit of his experience. And I'm really excited for the conversation today. So Michael Norton still considers himself a constant student of the game when it comes to performance development and helping organizations meet and exceed their goals. He brings more than 25 years of experience in helping to drive leadership, sales management, and sales success for companies of all sizes. Michael has developed, delivered, and created reinforcement programs that deliver real ROI while fitting into a company's culture, processes, daily sales workflow, and budget. Having founded 2 companies prior to joining Sandler, he is considered one of the earliest pioneers of micro-learning for personal and professional development. Michael is also the former president of the Zig Ziglar Corporation. So guys, wherever you're at, your homes, your cars, your kitchens, your Costco's, wherever, give a round of applause. And again, welcome Michael to the show. So Michael, thank you so much for coming to the Marketing Matrix today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So I am very curious, Michael, take us back to the origins of why sales? What is it about sales that kind of captured you early for it to be a huge focus for you in your lifelong career?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would have to point to the people who were around me in my life earlier in my career. When I came into the military, I was in the Coast Guard and really didn't have quite a direction, but I had an aunt who would encourage me to get into sales. I had an uncle who spent his career in the military and then came out and got into sales, and he said, "You would make a great salesperson." So early on, I had family who pointed me in the right direction. And honestly, when I first got into it and the companies I worked for would put me through sales training, I became a complete sponge. I was that geek in the group, the cohort who, when you wanted to role play, nobody else wanted to role play. I'm like, I want to role play. Like, I love this stuff. So just the fact that you can, like anybody, make money, have fun, create your own schedule once you get going. But really, at the end of the day, if your mind is in the right spot where you can help your prospects and your customers get exactly what they need, that's super fulfilling.
I love that. So I love how you ultimately framed it from the beginning as you're helping your prospects get what they need, because I think there's such there's often a stigma around sales that it's sleazy or that it's baggy in nature. What do you feel like people misunderstand about sales? How do you bridge that gap between sleazy and giving people what they need?
Yeah, and again, excellent point. And I'll just have to point to a great Sandler concept that we talk about here at Sandler Training all the time. We say that it is immoral and wrong to sell somebody something that they do not need, but it's also wrong and immoral not to sell somebody something that they do need. Right? So there's a huge difference there. Am I just going in for the commission check? I'm gonna make this sell happen regardless if they need it or not, or can I be really authentic and say this is not the right fit at this time? You can get by with what you have, or you should go in a different direction. And that has served me well my entire career.
I love that. So really it's being in touch with the actual needs, right? Like not being so focused on your product that you're just hucking a service or a product, right? But that you're like, what do you really need? And like, is this a good fit for both of us?
Yeah, and if I drew upon for all your listeners, if anybody remembers the name Zig Ziglar, and I'm sure there's many who do, he was the salesman, the great world's greatest motivator. But his number one quote, which didn't wasn't just a quote on a wall for us, it was a principle that we lived by inside the organization. And the quote says this: you can have everything in life that you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. And when you live that out, it absolutely plays, bring it, live in a spirit of abundance, not of scarcity. Your prospects see it, your customers know it, that you're there for their best interest, and trust is born.
I love that. So like, how have you seen that play out in your own life? That quote.
So I'm going to give you a great example of this. I don't know if I shared this with you when we were, first got together, but my wife and I started a side hustle back in 2018. We owned an ice cream shop. So we thought it would be fun. And if you're listening out there, unless you really want to go for a labor of love, don't buy an ice cream shop. But we bought an ice cream shop in a beach town in New Jersey. And we put that quote that I just shared with you on the wall in big 18-inch block letters around the ceiling. And we had over 22 girls who worked for us in shifts of 4 and 5. And they were all high school age to college age girls who would come to work in the summer at our ice cream shop. If I walked in and they could recite the quote without looking at it, they got $5 from me in their tip jar. If they came in and had a story about it, how they saw it play out in their life, where they were giving of their time, they got $10. If they took the time to write it down and share with me how they saw it and where it worked, they got $20. So here's the most amazing thing. These girls, when we sold the shop, we had a going away party, and we had all the girls who'd ever worked for us before come, and we had music and food, and we took one of the local restaurants in town. But every one of the girls got up and shared a story of how they saw it play out in their life. And they would say to my wife and I, what you gave us was more than just a job scooping ice cream. You taught us the business. You taught us customer service. You prepared us for life in a way that when we talked to our friends who worked at other places, didn't get that.
I love that experience so much that like it wasn't just scooping ice cream, right? Like you were driving principles of success deep into their hearts that could serve them long beyond just that summer job, right?
Yep.
So powerful.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, we were at the beach this past, few couple weeks, and we were walking on the beach, and one of the girls who'd graduated college was walking along the beach holding a brown paper bag, and we saw her coming, down the beach, and we're like, "Oh my god, it's Sally." And we were like had our conversation, we're like, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm picking up trash from the beach." By herself, not organized, just out there picking up trash on our beach. Like, that was the level of service to the community and giving back to the community that we instilled in them. And that was the whole quote: you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want.
I love that. I love the example that you share from from a perspective of simple things and community service. Cause like I've been in plenty of leadership conferences before where that and marketing conferences where that quote is shared, but it's always in the context of the more painful the problem that you solve, the more money you make. It's always in relation to capital gains, not necessarily to like community service. I don't know. Do you have anything specific to say about that in terms of like its application on like
Yeah,
a not just a
yeah,
large scale, but
but
on
it's
like
still
a intimate community scale? Like I think that's really interesting.
yeah. So, and that's really at the essence and the heart of who Sandler is and what we teach. You used words earlier like manipulative, and how sales can sometimes be deemed as sleazy, and we hear these words. I have in my entire career. But at Sandler, we really take the time. What we're after, we're not after any manipulation in what we do. At the core of what we're trying to teach salespeople how to do is have an adult to adult, truth based conversation. Going back to like, don't try to sell them something that you do not need, but have a conversation where they can become self aware of what they do need and why they need it. And there's 4 primary buying reasons. or triggers. It's pain in the present. There's something going on right now that they have to fix. And if they don't fix it, they're going to have pain in the future. Or there's gain in the present by making a change and doing something. They'll experience real ROI in a number of different ways, or there's going to be gain in the future. So if you can have a conversation to help somebody understand what that is, where the pain or gain opportunity really is, and quantify that for them. And that's the big thing. A lot of sales organizations talk about qualification and how important qualifying and disqualifying prospects are. Qualification by itself is meaningless. Qualification with quantification of the pain or the gain and how the impact there, that equals sales success.
I love that. So can you share an example of that, like with a company that you've worked with Sandler principles?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I can. We work with every industry you could think of in vertical. We've probably done some level of training, in which one should I use? I'll give you a technology example. I can't give you the company name, but I'll give you a technology example. So, working with this organization for the past year, trained their managers and leaders first on these concepts. Then we talked their sellers, and their sellers were probably in a 2 to 3 call close type situation. They counted a lot on their BDRs or inside sales to set up appointments and generate leads for them. They counted on their account-based marketing tool, but the salespeople were also incented to go and find their own business to prospect. So we saw a 14% or 15% increase in sales rep driven conversions on their own without the other tools, conversions to close for those who went through the program, and a 14% decrease in those who didn't come through the program. So we did an A/B split and study. So when we taught people how to have an adult to adult truth-based conversation, determining if there's pain or gain and what the impact of that pain or gain might be, they were able to increase their close rate by 15%.
That's incredible. I love that. So did it decrease the touch points as well? Like you mentioned they were doing like 2 to 3, or like was it still the same amount of touch points they
It's
were
still about the same amount of touch points, but what it did also, they have a whole bunch of stats. So it decreased the number of no-shows on second calls. So
interesting.
they were able to establish pain, then come back with a proposed solution where the customer or prospect wanted to see what the solution would be.
Yeah. So I feel like I've something I've noticed with people that are in sales, like it's easier, like it's more emotionally comfortable to work on talking about the gains and quantifying the gains. But like what's uncomfortable is the pain, right? Like, the questions like what is your company losing if you don't implement a solution like this? Or like, what is this costing you every day that something doesn't change in this regard or something like that? Like, do you have any advice in terms of like getting over that discomfort or pain of like quantifying the pains? Because the gain side I think is a little bit more natural, but the pain side is like sometimes it makes you nervous.
Yeah, it makes everybody nervous. That's what Sandler, we focus on 3 things even before we start the training to level set in the classroom, whether it's in person or virtual. And we call it the Sandler Success Triangle. And if you drew a triangle, you'd have a B at one point, an A at the other point, and a T on the other point. And it stands for behavior, attitude, and technique. And we have to spend equal amounts of time working with salespeople because we know if you only focus on techniques and you don't share what are the behaviors you need to do, you'll never be able to use those techniques. Or if you don't have the right mindset going into it, right? Even though you know the behaviors to do and you know the techniques, you could talk yourself out of making a sales call. Every salesperson does it. Oh, that's going to be too hard. They've already beaten me up on price once. They're already working with my competitor. That's head trash, right? So the first thing you have to get people over is their head trash. Once you get them over their head trash, it's just having that adult to adult truth-based conversation, asking for permission. Hey, can I bring up a hard subject? And when you say it that way, people are going to say, of course. What is it? Well, just in the conversation that we've had here, it sounds like that this problem has been costing me about $2.1 million a year. Am I getting that right? Right? I'm not manipulative. I'm not bringing it up in a bad way. And maybe if I didn't get it right, what does that actual number look like? How's that impacting the business? So there's 3 things. Every time you walk in, any salesperson having a call with any prospect or customer, and they ask a standard business question, they're going to get a surface level answer. that prospect is going to say the same thing to that salesperson as they're going to say to the competitor and the other competitor and the other. They're going to share surface level information. But when you get good at asking good pain questions, you get down to the business impact that pain is causing. But the third step is the hardest. Lisanne, this is the hardest one and where people get uncomfortable. What's the personal impact? Like, if you don't fix this, not just how is it impacting the company or the business, what happens to you? And when you can get, but you have to build that trust. You have to have that trust-based relationship. You can't walk in and lead with that unless you have the trust, right? Which some organizations teach. You want to go in and just challenge them right away and kind of, get in their face about it. Maybe 7% of the population can pull that off. What Sandler really believes is just getting to that point where we call it disarming honesty. You're willing to share information with me, and I'm willing to share information with you, and we figure out, is there a fit here or not? And if it's no today, that's okay, because no today doesn't mean no tomorrow.
I love that. I love that. Such a good, it goes back to what you were saying with the Zig Ziglar quote is it's an abundance mentality, right? Like it's a servant-based abundance mentality, which I think is really brilliant. So with Sandler, do you guys so I noticed like I was doing a little bit of research before we hopped on. Like you don't just go in and do like a one-time training, like you make sure like you have reinforcement training is what you called it, I believe, right? Like so like you make
Yes.
sure that it's sticky. So like what does that look like? Like are you placing salespeople in the company? Are you just doing follow-up trainings? Do you have like a software that helps people practice? Like what does that look like for Sandler?
All of the above, right? So the first thing to be really clear with your audience, there's two sides of the Sandler business. One side of our business is what's been around forever. It's our franchise business. And we have over 225 locations around the globe and over 400 trainers attached to those training centers. And it's all Sandler in those training centers. They focus on small, medium-sized businesses, individuals, mid-market type opportunities. And they do everything from staffing and recruiting, coaching, reinforcement, to using different tools and technologies for sustainability and reinforcement. But they do a lot of one-on-one or weekly meetings with their customers. A high touch point to make that really stick. The enterprise side of the business is where we focus on the upper mid-market and enterprise accounts, right? So we don't have the luxury of going in every single week and meeting with salespeople and sales managers. So we put together an initial program that's could be 2-day boot camp in person, could be a 1-day boot camp in person and followed up with virtual. It could be all virtual. During COVID, we all had to get really good at virtual delivery, and Sandler did. We crushed it. We were doing virtual delivery before COVID, so it was a very easy transition for us. But then you have to have the reinforcement sessions. We call them application sessions beyond the initial training, running 60-minute clinics, coaching clinics, teaching their sales managers how to coach to the system when we're not there. That's a force multiplier. Right? When you get your frontline managers really bought into the selling system and your executives and you've taught them how to coach to it. But then there's all the tools, AI role play coach, tools and content embedded in your CRM tool, conversational intelligence with the Sandler trackers or rubrics built in. So there's so many different tools that we use to make sure that it sticks. We see our job as, because especially on the enterprise side, people are investing a lot of money. They're making a very big investment in their teams, and they're looking for that return on investment. Our job is, as a good partner, is to leverage and protect that investment to make sure they're getting the very most out of the investment in their people.
I love that. Well, I love how there's different levels of solutions that work with the different sizes of companies, right? Which is really neat. So, tell me about the companies that you founded before joining Sandler. Like, were they sales based companies, or were you just the sales element in the companies?
No, I was really truly blessed. Again, I shared earlier in my early career, I just fell in love with sales training, just everything about it. I had back, I'm going to date myself here, in my trunk of my car, cassettes from every, Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, Dennis Waitley, Tony Parinelli. I had everybody's programs. No matter where I went, I was selling. So it was Automobile University. I was listening to those all the time. And it got to be the point where I knew them like the back of my hand. And somebody would say, "Hey, you know that Tom Hopkins piece, where he talks about doing a needs analysis. I'm like, yeah, it's cassette two, side B, about 12 minutes in, right? And so now the internet comes along, and people are starting .coms. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I got permission from all of those authors and experts, where I did all the heavy lifting, but I parsed out all those sound bites and where something can go immediately and just type into my website, you know, how to get past the gatekeeper, or overcoming the objection if price is too high, or we're happy with our current supplier. And I had the way that every one of the top experts in the world would answer that question. So the first company was called salesrepsonline.com. And we were feeding that content. This is where people said one of the earliest pioneers of micro learning for salespeople. We chunked all of that down to these quick little, and this is the first time only text. There was no audio video. There was no pipe the first time. So we were sending it out via text. Salesforce.com was one of their very first partners. When they went live, we had a sales tip of the day on their website, and we went on to be acquired by Siebel Systems. So it was a great exit. Mr. Ziglar at that point asked me if I would come and stay on with him and his son to help run their corporate business. And in 2006, when Oracle bought Siebel, we were let out. I had a lifetime non-compete unless Siebel was acquired, or I had a liquidation event, I went out of business. So when Oracle bought Siebel, we put the band back together. And the first go around, where we had maybe 15 of the top authors and experts and sales training companies, we started a company called Can Do Go. You can do anything, be anything, go anywhere you want to go by having this library of content at your fingertips. But now we had audio, video, text, and we amassed over 12,000 30 to 90-second clips, and we were feeding it up through everybody's CRM. And so I've been studying how people first learn, how they perform, how they grow, and how they adapt for the last almost 30 years now.
I love those. Well, and what I love is that, like, it's essentially what I think a lot of people are leveraging AI, like Chat GPT tools, to do what that program has created, right? Like, how do I overcome this objection? And, like, things and, like, little bits will pop up and stuff like that. So that is so cool. What an amazing story and experience, and opportunity to notice a market dynamic and an opportunity, and with your skill set, kind of jump into the market with that specific idea. So how did Sandler scoop you up? What's that story?
Oh, it's a great story. So I had met David Mattson, who was the CEO of Sandler back in the early 2000s. I was with the Ziglar organization, and we had a meeting, and he's like, one of these days, Mr. Ziglar's going to retire and would love to have you over here at Sandler. And when we started Can Do Go, because Sandler they decided not to join us in the salesrepsonline.com days. So they missed that one. But in 2006, I reached out to him and said, I don't think you want to miss it this time. You want to be a part of that. And so he came to Denver. We had a studio in Denver where we would bring the authors in. They would record for a few hours. And he came in for 2 straight days. He recorded 125 bytes of content. And we had dinner, both nights. And he's again said, hey, would love to have you as a team member when the time is right, because I was running Can Do Go, or launch that company. I was still the president of the Zig Ziglar, so I had 2 full-time jobs already. And so we just stayed in touch over the years. And in 2010, when Mr. Ziglar retired, finally, uh, I moved from Ziglar over to Sandler as the executive vice president of the enterprise team.
Wow. So they were you'd built a relationship with them for quite some time.
And I was passionate, super passionate about their content. I had put salespeople through their content with local franchisees in the past. I attended some of their sessions myself. I didn't, in all the times, and I studied every one of those sales training companies. They were partners of mine, and I know almost everybody in the business. Nobody in my mind took reinforcement and sustainability as seriously as Sandler did. Sandler does, even to this day. Nobody puts more thought and muscle and energy into thinking about how do you make it stick, because one and done we know does not work. It's a huge, colossal waste of money. So Sandler puts a lot of time and energy and thoughtfulness into how do you really make this become part of the DNA of an organization.
I love that. So I can tell that you're an avid learner, right? I mean, like you have those cassettes, and I can picture them perfectly. My grandpa had his own, right? Like with like the puffy cases, and you open it up, and there's like the 6 to 8 cassettes on each
Exactly
side.
what was in the trunk of my car.
Yeah, so I inherited some of those cassette sets from him because I'm a personal development junkie, and so when my grandfather passed away, I was like, I'm taking those because it's such a cool relic for personal development. But going back to your learning though, like what are you still engaging in sales methodologies in your learning, or like are you more interested in, I don't know, history or politics? Like what's filling the learning space of your brain at this point?
I'll never stop learning sales techniques or methodology or just reinforce it and going back to the tried and true principles that really work. And here's just worth saying, and I will answer your question. One of the biggest questions that we get or comments that people make are, well, what's new out there? Or like, what's the new thing salespeople should be doing? And my comment is always, it's not what's new that works. It's what works that works, right? So there are some new things and thoughts that are going to be new and revolutionary or even transformational. But there's some core principles that I love going back to and reading some of the earliest works of Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, David Sandler, the founder of our company, like his oldest material. But for me, what fills my learning bucket, and I've been doing this for 20 years, I go through a cycle of books. I have 5 genres that I go through. So the very first one I read is it's a faith-based book. I'll find something that I wanna read, and it's generally across religions because I'm just trying to educate myself on what's happening out there. Then I read a history book, then I read a biography, then I read a business or personal development book, and then I read a novel just for some like, just some head candy and I find my creativity when I read novels. I get a lot of inspiration out of that because I do a lot of writing.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. So what genre are you in right now? What's the current read?
The current read right now is I went back to a classic. I am in a faith-based book right now, uh, and it's called The Case for the Real Jesus by Lee Strobel.
Interesting. That's cool. Have you read, since we're talking about the religious genre, a religious book that I read recently that I really loved was a book by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk. It's called Living Buddha, Living Christ. Have you ever heard of that book?
No, I'm gonna take that down now.
So it's really fascinating because I mean, I'm guessing you're from a Christian background. Oftentimes when you read books on other religions, they're often viewed from the lens of a Christianity, right? So what's really interesting is this book from Thich Nhat Hanh is the lens of Christianity from Buddhism. And so like where the intersections are between Buddhism and Christianity, and how the Buddha and Christ are, what similarities they have. And it was so fascinating and illuminating. One of the best books one of my favorite religious books that I've read because it was just from a different angle and still resonated deeply with my Christian roots as well.
Yeah, and yeah, I was raised Christian, but I've always been so curious, Lisanne. So, and the more we get into the chasms of the world and the great divisions and divide and how we're dissimilar, I really did go out. I even just put myself through. I didn't care about getting credits or a degree in anything, but I would go to the local community colleges and enroll in comparative religion courses
Cool.
just because I wanted to understand the perspective of other people. And so when I'm having a conversation with them, it's just not my down my beliefs. It's first trying to understand where they're coming from and then relating it.
I love that. That's such a powerful skill, and I think it's really important because I think that in the world today, divisiveness gets views, right? And so more divisiveness is spread in order to promote channels, right? And so, but when you really get to the base of it, from my perspective, like we all want the same core things, like kind of going back to like you're like, it's not about what's working right now in sales, like what works. And I think like what makes us human, and like at the core, we all have the same desires for love and safety and community and belonging, and so regardless what angle that comes from, regardless of your religious background, like we we all want the same things ultimately. And so gaining how someone else views it, that other lens, I think makes us really powerful humans with the capacity for greater compassion and empathy in the world, which is really powerful in my opinion.
I agree.
So fantastic. I love it. Okay, so with Sandler being an organization that's been around for a long time and they're quite large, like and with you being the VP of sales on the enterprise side, like what are some of the initiatives? Like what's Sandler cooking up for 2026?
Yeah, there's so much going on. As a matter of fact, we just hired a brand new chief strategy officer for the organization. He was an analyst at Forrester. His name is Seth Mars, and one of the brightest guys I've really had the privilege of meeting. I just love having smart people all around us. So, he talks a lot about what's next in sales and like what's coming next in sales. So obviously we all have to be on the forefront of AI and what's happening there. Right, so Sandler is doing everything we can, pouring into that to figure out what is the best use of AI in our world. And almost every day we're coming up with a new use case that we could think of because it's the genie is out of the bottle, right? We can pretty much do anything. So there's going to be a lot of AI supported tools. We know that conversational intelligence is going to be it's everywhere. When it first came out, if you remember, people would see a recorder on a Zoom call or a Teams call, and they'd say, "Hey, please turn that off. We don't want any of the calls recorded," and you would have to turn it off. It was kind of taboo, but now it's like I've been on calls with my sales team, and if we don't have it in there, the prospect will actually say, "Hey, do you guys have a recorder so that you can send me the notes, after the call?" So now it's like really accepted. So AI-driven role play, conversational intelligence tools that are built in with the Sandler content that could be tracked. Are they following that content? Using technology that allows us to understand somebody's personality style, using AI to, before we get on a call, hey, if you're familiar with DISC, are you about to meet somebody who's a D, an I, a DI, or an SC, or all C? If there's a team of people, you can see who all 5 people are, so you know how to adapt your presentation and questioning style to the group. So there's all types of different ways that we're layering in, and definitely CRM. And the more we're going to get to a point where it's going to be touchless CRM because everything's going to come from our conversational intelligence tools and other AI, and everything that we're doing with our prospects and clients that will auto populate. But in there, how do you put in tips and techniques embedded into and the tools that you use every day? Because here's the thing I did find out about salespeople doing all my 2 startups and ever since then, and I study people all the time, salespeople all the time. You can have the greatest tools and technology, the strongest content on the planet, and the majority of salespeople will not go to it. They just won't. They won't gravitate. There'll be a percent that will, that are junkies just like you and me for personal and professional development, but the masses will not. But if you put it in their flow of work, if you put it
Mm,
where they are and you do it in those little bite-sized chunks, the tools that they're going to use, and you make it easy for them so they don't have to go looking for it, then you're going to see greater adoption.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm working with a company right now that they're working on a solution that like those note takers that you were just talking about. They're looking at programming one that's on sales calls live so that it can give real-time feedback.
That's exactly right. That's what's happening. Call centers are using that. Call centers were way ahead of the game. They were giving them real-time feedback, single pane of glass, right?
Yeah.
Customer says
So
this,
cool.
you say this. Yeah, here's your next best thing to say, right?
Yeah. So neat. I love it. I love it. That's cool. Well, I'm excited for Sandler. Is there anything that you're like a roadblock that you're noodling on, or like something that you're chewing on that you're like, man, I'd sure love to figure this piece out, or this is something that's stunting our growth.
I don't know about stunting our growth, but I would say I can probably speak collectively for our industry because I do speak to a lot of executives in our competitor offices. And as great as AI is and ChatGPT is, people think that they don't need a Sandler or anybody in our industry anymore. They can create their own sales training program. They could literally put into ChatGPT, print me out a 2-day sales training program agenda based on the Sandler selling system. And in 30 seconds, you have it. And so we know they're going to try it. We've already seen companies try it, but what they're finding out is it gets lost in translation. Do you have somebody who can actually take that and bring it to life in front of the classroom. That's where a master facilitator, somebody who understands the nuances, and it can't just be an academic. And this is another area where Sandler truly does differentiate itself. Every one of our trainers not only trains, but they sell. So they're practicing what they preach every single day. And when you can take a proven selling system like Sandler that has been around for 57 years, but that we update consistently to meet the modern buyer today, where so they can help sell to the modern buying people or modern buyers and modern buying committees. You have to have somebody who can take that content and bring it to life in front of the classroom. Just to say, print me out. As one of our competitors, I was talking with their chief strategy officer, and he was at a conference and he had done a talk, and a guy brought up a printed out manual of his book that the guy had written and a training period. He goes, "Hey, check this out. I did this all on ChatGPT." The guy was like, "I don't know if I should be offended or, should I give him an autograph or like whatever he did?" But the access to information is out there. Like you just said, I can go to ChatGPT and ask how to get past the gatekeeper. I can get that stuff right now where we had it in our website years ago. So that's one of the things I think we're all wrestling with. And I think we're going to see a number of companies go try to build their own, thinking it's cheaper. But what we've been told from people who've already done it and tried it, it's harder than they thought. It takes actually longer than they thought, and it winds up in the long run costing them more than they thought it was going to cost.
Mm,
So then they come back and say, "Look, we could have went with you, and we would have been 9 months ahead of
yeah. Yeah.
where we
No,
were
that's
today."
really insightful. I love that. Well, Michael, it has been an absolute joy to have you today on the Marketing Matrix and to hear your wealth of experience and your depth of knowledge and just your zeal for life and trying things, whether it's learning deeply while you're hitting the road or changing people's lives as you're opening an ice cream shop or running an entire division at a multinational company. It's really, really exciting. And it's been a joy to have you on the podcast today. So thank you so much for coming.
Again, I'm humbled to be here. Thank you so much, Lisanne. If anybody does want to meet me, it's michael.norton@sandler.com. Pretty easy. You can go to sandler.com or you can find me at LinkedIn, just Michael Norton Sandler on LinkedIn. You'll find me.
Awesome, guys. Well, I'm going to put the links to his handles as well as his websites and the episode notes, so you can click into those easily. But again, thank you so much for coming onto the Marketing Matrix, and for you guys, we know that your time is valuable. So for you to spend some time with us today means the absolute world. So until next time on the Marketing Matrix, guys, stay safe and keep up the good work.